Yeah, bye. All right, XOXO. Got a girl. Audra at Home is filmed in front of a live Pitbull audience. Good morrow and merry meet. My name is Audra and you are in for a treat. All right, well, today I am doing my best Mimi. I believe that is her name, but like it's been a while since the Drew Carey show. Anywhoozits, this topic came to mind and I thought I should get myself clown-like to talk about it so that it's not so heavy. Also, I didn't want to do makeup while I was talking this time because patrons and channel members know I injured myself and I wasn't positive that I would actually be able to do makeup on camera, so hence I'm already ready already. So today I'm going to be talking about something that, you know, it's a touchy subject. I'm going to be talking about the truth about divorce. Now, please note that I am a laugher when I am nervous, so I'm not just like laughing at people's pain or whatever, but as a divorcee, I thought it would be fun or painful or illuminating to shed some light on the truth about divorce, because I feel like if I had had this information out there when I was going through this, and I'm sure it was, I just wasn't looking for it, or I just couldn't find it, whatever it just wasn't normal to see this kind of information. So here we go. I'm gonna dive into it embarrassingly. So let's start this awkward party. So the first thing that I want to talk about with regards to divorce is how many people do not realize how much shame is still involved in getting a divorce. I know it is 2021. When I got divorced, I feel like it was 2016? I'm gonna go with that. But even then, there's still just like a shit ton of shame involved in getting divorced, because it's like, you did all the things that you thought you were supposed to do, right? You dated for a while, then you got engaged, then you stood up in front of friends and family and whatever deity that you believe in, or if you don't believe in a deity, you still stood in front of friends and family and promised that you were going to be together forever. But forever never came, and the relationship broke up, and it just feels like you failed. So involved with that shame is failure. It just feels like you not only like lied to everybody and that you didn't try hard enough, but also that you just failed. Like you feel like so together in a lot of your life, but when your relationship, which is like a major cornerstone of your life, when that shit falls apart, like there is just this ultimate amount of shame involved with it, because regardless of what people say, there's still stigma around divorce. Like, yes, we can get divorced and it's not like, oh my God, but there's still stigma around it, and so it does still make you feel ashamed, especially here in the South. Like that shit, it still has a stigma attached to it. And if you are a woman or femme, there is so much stigma attached to you being divorced that you're afraid to even say you were divorced when you decide, if you should decide to start dating again, because you're afraid that you're going to be like labeled in some kind of way, and it kind of makes you feel like it's already showing that you are not good at relationships and that you failed miserably. So there's a lot of shame involved in divorce. No one tells you how much relief you get from getting divorced, because a lot of people just do not understand how long this relationship has been a giant flaming pile of shit, right? Because it's so hard, because so many people around you are always asking you for advice, and you've been together so long, what's the secret to your marriage? And deep down, you just want to look and be like, how should I know? My marriage has been running off the rails for the last 5 years. I don't know how it's surviving at this point. I think it's surviving out of fear on both of our parts. Like, that's what you start to feel like. But there's this just unimaginable deep sigh of relief when you finally let go. Because you have literally been trying to like put this relationship back together for a long time before the divorce actually came. And every step that you make, it feels like you kind of get some progress with your relationship getting better, but then it just kind of backpedals into the slums again, and you just can't figure out what's wrong with it. And more than anything, you just realize that you're just not compatible with each other. Like, I realized that with my relationship and my marriage, we were not compatible to be married. If we had not followed societal norms, I truly think that we would have dated for 2-3 years tops, broken up, and actually remained friends. Like, we would have been friends if we had just broken up and like not gotten married and not done all of that. I don't think our relationship would have lasted 12 long years if we had not done the whole marriage thing. Now, this isn't me getting on my like, don't get married, but I'm saying if we hadn't followed the societal norms, I think we would have been able to like break up and just like not have all of this. We became so toxic for each other, and that's another secret or another thing that people don't tell you about divorce is how toxic you start to become for each other. You really become like not good for one another. You break each other down, you know where to hit the other person, like what is going to hurt them most, and it just gets like uglier and uglier. And so when that thing finally ends, there is such a sense of relief that it brings you right back around to that shame, because you feel ashamed for feeling happy that you're off of this ride. It is a miserable ride, and you've been riding this fucking train for so long, and you just like to get off and like not be moving anymore and to just like be still. Glorious. So that's one of the things that I feel like the secret about divorce, or a truth about divorce, we'll call it truth, is that nobody really tells you how much relief you truly feel when it's actually just over. When you both decide like, let's call this fucking quits and move on.
I work all night, I work all day to pay the bills I have to pay.
But another thing that people don't really tell you is the financial ruin that divorce brings. I know people make jokes about like, oh, she took all of his money or blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. Regardless of how much money you both make, your credit score, specifically speaking in America here, is intrinsically tied together because your debt to income ratio has been combined. So I'm getting financial, but in reality, that's what happens. So like your 764 or 800 credit score is a result of you both paying for things and both of your incomes, which is a huge change when you get divorced. When you get divorced, your debt to income ratio a lot of times is going to skyrocket or go down, however you want to put it. The point is, it's not gonna be in the same place it was in before when, let's say that the two of you together I'm gonna use made up fun numbers because we're living in a fantasy world for this part. Let's say that the two of you together make $350,000, but when you get divorced, you now only make $100,000. So all of your credit cards, everything that you have that's in your name or that you decide to keep, that's changing your debt to income ratio, which makes your credit score go and it's so frustrating because all of a sudden you're having to rebuild not only your life, but your finances. You're having to like look at your life and try to figure out what you can and cannot live without. Like it just starts to become this thing where you're suddenly having to look around and realize how much you relied on another person's income for certain things in life, whether they be necessary or unnecessary, and no one can judge that for you, right? Like the stupid things, like when you went to lunch with friends, you were covered because you had another income. You know what I mean? You're like, yeah, let's go to lunch, like da 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 da. you had lunch with some friends, or you went on a girls' night, you bought a round of shots for everybody, and like all of a sudden, all of that changes. Like that fun part of your life, not that it disappears, but you really have to like pull that back in. And on top of that, just your regular expenses, you have to look at them in a way you hadn't had to look at them before. Because previous it was like, yeah, we can afford that. Yeah, we. Now it's I, and you have to kind of take a look at things and start realizing like you might have to downsize. And I'm not just talking about like, get a cheaper cell phone plan. No, I'm talking about selling your car for a cheaper car. And then you even in that instance have to weigh the pros and cons of selling your car. You have to start asking yourself like, okay, but if I sell my car, will the payment, I have negative equity in this car. So will the payment be low enough with the negative equity rolled into this pay? Like you become a mathematician and it sucks. But yeah, a lot of people do not tell you how much financially your life changes. And it is extraordinarily stressful because for months after, you're just like, when you finally actually break up and you're living in different places, maybe the divorce isn't final, and a lot of times it's not by this point, but you're really having to sit there and like lay out your finances in a way you probably haven't done for literal years. You know what I mean? Like you have not had to like look at your personal spending by yourself and everything you own in a long time because you've been in a couple and it's been like a combined effort. Now you're having to do it by yourself and it's just. And because of that like financial ruin, the first time you really start looking at like the change in finances, another truth about divorce that people won't tell you is the go back. Baby, come back. Any kind of fool. Nobody will tell you, very few people will tell you about the go back moments that they had because of fear, right? A lot of times, I myself had them. The weird, like, late night drunken calls being like, I'm just never gonna find anybody like you. And I love you so much. Fear. Because the first time you really have to start looking at your life on your own, there is a ton of fear there. I can tell you, I was there. I made those late night calls. I freaked out. I panicked. Like, the realities of dating again start giving you a whole level of like, maybe I can just be miserable for the rest of my life. Yeah, I can be miserable for the rest of my, like there's a part of you that truly starts to think like maybe I wasn't as miserable as I thought I was. And even if I was, is it really that bad? I think it would be kind of okay if I just spent the rest of my life being super like miserable with them, because living without them seems hard. I don't think that I want to date again. There's not a lot out here. There's not a lot out here. And those realities, like finding a place on your own, trying to like survive financially, especially in the US economy, in the US where everything keeps going up but our wages. It is so terrifying. Like when we broke up and I moved out, the first times that I had to start looking at everything, I was like, oh my God, this is not good. This is not good. I was scared. I didn't make a lot of money at that point in time. I was broke. I worked a job and I think I was getting paid like $11 an hour, which I literally went from making almost $60K to making $11 an hour. And that was when we were breaking up, was when I made almost zero money. So now I'm having to figure my life out, figure out my finances, and I'm having to like ask for help in ways that I hadn't had to ask for help in a really long time. I'm having to turn to my mom and be like, so listen, if you could kindly just scooch me a little money here and there because I'm hungry. It's just so scary. And so you have these moments where you just kind of fall back and like start trying to think of the good times in the relationship. You're like, well, it wasn't that bad that he was verbally and emotionally abusive. Maybe I can just put up with that. It was fine when I just went into the bedroom by myself for several hours, as long as he didn't bother me. And yeah, I don't really want to have sexual relations. I just kind of lay there now because I just want it to be over, but that's fine, right? you just kind of panic. And I feel like enough people do not talk about those moments and how you feel like, I'm gonna just go back because it'll be easier. It will be less stressful, because this stress of trying to rebuild my life is more than I really bargained for when I was like ready to let this go.
I was born to flex. Yes. Diamonds on my neck. I like boarding jets. I like morning sex. But
everybody doesn't look at social media the same, but it does tend to make a divorce worse. Here's why. First of all, everybody saw all your happy pictures, you know, and everybody's like stunned that you're breaking up. Everybody's just like, oh my God, y'all are perfect. And you're just like, no. Facebook and Instagram do not a perfect relationship make. I don't have people following us around taking photos of us when we're fighting, arguing, and cannot get along. And even if I did, we're not posting that. The whole point of social media is to be like, look how happy we are in our relationships. I mean, that's kind of why we all make fun of those couples who will like make those anniversary posts. They're like, babe, even though sometimes I want to murder you with my bare hands and choke the life out of you until I see the light die in your eyes, I love you. Like, we laugh at those because we know, right? Especially if you're on the other side of that and you've been in a relationship, you're like, yeah, that's not a good post. That's not good. That's not good. And we laugh, but the reality is, that's, people make choices, and sometimes people make the choice that's better for them, and sometimes if they have kids and their minds are like, this is better for our kids, that's why we laugh, because it doesn't make sense. You look at people and you're like, why would you stay in this relationship? I'm telling you why. Because with social media, everybody sees the perfection part of your relationship. They see you looking at each other lovingly and whatnot. They don't see the 3 seconds before in that photo when you were just like, just don't even touch me. And everybody's like, hey guys, and you're like nobody understands, other than other people who've been through this, how often like you have to deal with this. And then once the announcement is made somewhere on social media, even if you didn't ask for it, it becomes even worse, because now you have two competing things happening. In public and on social media, you have to seem like what the media portrays is what a divorcee should be doing, especially women and femmes. Now, I'm not saying we're all morons and idiots and like, movies aren't real and we shouldn't be following them, but they do inform how we behave. And like, let's be real about how divorce is shown in movies and breakups are. It's that, you know, the bad bitch gets her bad bitch on, she looks amazing, she's going out, she's partying, she's having a great time, she lost 175 pounds, bitch. Like, it's that whole thing, right? So you feel like you have to portray this like, I'm doing just fine, hashtag single lady hoes. And you have to do this whole thing where it feels like you have to go out, you have to be having a good time, because people are always saying those things to you, like the best way to get over someone is to get under somebody else. And so you're out there playing this game of like, I'm perfectly fine, everything's good, I'm glad that this is over, blah, 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 blah. But behind closed doors, you're devastated. You are just devastated, and you can't show that devastation to the world because it feels like everybody is supposed to see how much better you are without that person, without your spouse. They're supposed to see that you are doing fantastic. Everyone around you is supposed to be happy for you, because little known secret that I'm going to tell you is that most people don't actually talk about how bad their marriage is failing before it's over. Most people don't. Not even to their closest friends. They don't, like, not even their parents. This is something that you suffer in silence. And you just sit there and you're suffering. And so when it all ends, you now are just still suffering in silence. Instead of being able to like tell people like, this is breaking my heart. I feel awful. I feel like a failure. I feel terrible. How am I supposed to get my financial future together? How am I supposed to like move forward? I can't believe that this is happening to me. It's supposed to happen to everybody else. You are falling apart, but yet you have to put like the hashtag boss babe, I'm a bad bitch, forward for everybody so that you don't look like a sad sack. Because like the other side of divorce that people don't tell you, a big truth is that someone is always trying to win the divorce. It does feel like a game, and that's a terrible thing to say, but it's fucking true. I did a video about like a little bit about this a long time ago on another channel I had, but when I tell you, it feels like you're trying to win. So you have to look the happiest. You have to get the best job and be making the most money. You have to get the best place to live. You have to get into a relationship first. It feels like there's all this stuff that you're rushing to do so that you quote unquote win the divorce, bitches. But like you're not supposed to be winning. But it feels like you are because of social media. It feels like you're supposed to. Somebody has to get to the things first. You know, it really took me until, like, it took the pandemic for me to finally, job-wise, sit down and go, Audra, how long have you been pursuing jobs that you don't want to continue to prove your financial worth and your worthiness to not only someone who doesn't care and you don't care if they care, but also to yourself, and you know you're worth something. So stop going for things that are making you miserable. I kept working at jobs that were making me miserable and moving up this corporate ladder that I had no desire to move up because I felt like I got divorced and I had to prove that just because I got divorced, it didn't mean that I was a pile of shit, right? And that I wasn't a failure and that I'm good at things, you know what I mean? And it took the pandemic for me to sit down and be like, what I really want is a job that I just go to and like it doesn't bother me. I have that now. When I finally was like, yeah, I don't want these things. I just want to get paid. I want to go, like, job understands contract. I go do work, you give me money. And that's what I have now. The job doesn't follow me home. Is it glamorous? No. Does it have status? No. Do I care? Absolutely fucking not. For once in my life, I don't care. And I feel like it takes a really long time to unpack that baggage from divorce. And obviously it's gonna be different from person to person.
I've been carrying my trouble, this pack strapped to my shoulder.
Another thing that I was alluding to when I was talking about how very few people tell anyone around them how bad the marriage was actually falling apart even after you get divorced. The other thing is, you don't really get to tell people how hard you tried to make it work. It's so frustrating because there's an enormous amount of people who come up out of the woodworks when they hear that you're getting divorced. And the most annoying thing is because every generation keeps trying to say this about the next generation, be like, the problem with y'all is y'all don't know how to stick to it. Y'all don't know how to stick together. Yeah. The real issue isn't that people don't know how to stick together. It's that people realize when to quit. Here's a stupid analogy for you. If you get a table and you're putting the table together, and no matter how hard you try, this one set of nuts and bolts that they provided for you just will not fit. And you cannot get it to work. You can't. No matter what you try to do, this nut and bolt will not fit properly. So either you're gonna have a wobbly leg of the table or you do what? Get a new table. You're not gonna sit there and put this wobbly ass table up and be like, everybody come over and hang out. Like, this isn't a restaurant where you stick a napkin under the table. This is your home. So your reality is you're gonna get a new table. So many people try so many different things to make their relationships work. And what's really hard, especially in hetero relationships, is how many men, like cishet men, do not believe in counseling or any of that, and they don't want to go. And a lot of women and femmes have to like drag their man to couples counseling just to even try that. You don't get to tell people how hard you tried to like make things work out. Because the reality is, even if you were to tell people that, it comes across for a lot of folks as you just like bashing the other person, and you're like, no, I fucked up too. I made mistakes, and that's part of unpacking all of this baggage. Is you spend a lot of time looking at it and going, this is where they made mistakes, this is where I made mistakes, this is where we made mistakes. And being able to unpack all of that, which is like one of my least favorite terms, but here we go. And opening that egg, spilling it all out, scrambling it up, and then making a delicious meal out of it. I don't know what delicious meal you make out of an egg other than an omelet, so that's what we're gonna go with. You make a delicious omelet, and it's good, and you're finally okay. There are no cracked pieces of shell in it, nothing. And you finally get to these stages where you can like move forward and enjoy your life. And each step is gonna take time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that you just like wake up and you're like, everything's perfect. It takes a long time. And I know that there are people who would be like, and it's not even like, there's no specified time period, and like that is the final truth that I'll tell y'all. There's no specified time period. I know people want to like have a formula. Well, the truth is that for every year you got together, that you were together, it's gonna take 6 months. It's whatever works for you. It's however long it takes you to move past everything that happened. Because relationships don't fail overnight. That's the thing. They don't just like, you don't wake up one day and your relationship is trash. It just slowly falls apart. And everything sometimes that you try to do, it just doesn't work out. More often than not, you're just not compatible. And it sucks because it feels like you're doing the right things. Like I mentioned earlier, you try to date for a long period of time. You know, you're like, you date for 4 or 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. Then you get engaged and you're engaged for 2, 3, 5 years. Then you finally get married and you're like, okay, this should be fine. We've been together this long. Like, and then it still somehow falls apart. And I'm never sure if it's because of the rings, who knows? But some of it's just because like, love just isn't always forever, and that is okay. That's okay. You know, it's not bad, but we're made to feel that way. So I hope that this video was helpful for anybody who is potentially going through this or who has gone through it. I hope it gives you some hope. I hope it makes you feel better. I hope that this was like fun-ish. It's a deep-ass subject to try to make fun, but anywho's I gotta run. I have some things to do. Another video to film, perhaps. And it's really hot. So anyways, if you liked being depressed by this video, please do me a favor and give this video a big thumbs up, so then that way the algorithm goddess will do what she does best, which is push me further down into the algorithm so that I can continue to do whatever the fuck I want. And as usual, huge shout out to my patrons and spooky bays, yeah, without which I truly would not be able to keep the bats in the belfry and the spiders firmly ensconced in their webs. To all of you who watch, like, share, and subscribe, I appreciate you as well. And you know the drill, it costs $0 to be kind. It's so good for your soul. Because if you don't take care of it, I'm sure shit ready to snatch yours. Until next time, XOXO. Got the girl. I cannot believe I did that without fucking it up. Ah! Oh shit, the light's not actually on. No. I feel like I have so much lip gloss on because I do. This will be uncomfortable. I got on my best clown outfit for what? You know what? I'm kind of digging this like look that I have going, so I don't know if I like this hair. Nobody likes it. I do, bitch. Okay, I'm done now. I'm gonna do the song. I'm hot, and you're not. And if you wanna get with me, I'll give it one shot. Top that. Now top that.